In this video, we'll look at the different type of numbers we can have. Some are really straightforward and some are a bit different, so I just want to be sure that you get the difference, and it's gonna be pretty fast. So let's look at this. We'll do it all with variables now because we know what variables are and we know how to sign them. So let's do an example that can apply to this video, and we'll look at YouTube followers. And we'll say I got 1,000 something YouTube followers, like 48, 44, I think, something like that. Okay, so that's a numbers. I just assigned this number. Now let's look at the type of, so I can do both. So I can just use a number, or I can use the variable, which I said we would use, right? So I say YouTube followers, and it says int. So why int? What is int? Int is integer, right? So it's just something to remember. What is an integer? So you can Google it, you can check in Wikipedia, but in short, it's a number without a comma, without decimals. So 8 is an integer and 8.2 is not an integer. So what happens if I take a number like my YouTube followers and I divide it by the amount of video I've created? I don't remember the amount of video I created, but we'll just imagine, and we'll say, okay, let's create first the video created variable. And video created, let's say I created 5, created more than 5. And now what I'll do is I'll divide one by another. I'll say, okay, YouTube followers, because I want to know, okay, more or less how many followers I had by the amount of video I created. By the way, if you want, you can subscribe, and it would be just awesome. So I do this. I just divide one by the other. So I'm dividing 1044 by 5, and gave me 208.8. So what happens if I take the type of this, and I can assign that to a new variable, which would be followers per video. I do it like that so you remember. So obviously it doesn't mean you have always the same amount of followers per video, but I can just keep it here. And if I do followers per video created, then it gives me back this number, right? So I can do it like this, I can print it, both are fine. Whoop. I got this number. So now what is the type of this variable? This new follower per video, what do you think it is? It's not int, I just told you before. It's a float. So why float? Because it's floating. Now it's a decimal. It's also called double depending on the languages, and basically it means that it's not an integer because it has a comma. So when you look at how the computer works, it's actually pretty different the way they are saved in the memory, and it doesn't really matter right now. Just remember that the float takes more memory than the integer, and well, there is different reason why they are not the same type. So in some languages you would not have this conversion done automatically when you divide one integer by another integer. In many languages it would keep and give you an answer that would be only the integer of this division, right? Like when you divide, let's say if you divide like this, so if you divide like we just did, I said 5 video, it gives me everything. But if I do the integer division, it's with a double bar, it gives me only 208, right? So most languages would do that, not Python. Python is giving you the new number with the full value, which is super useful, and that's it. But it changed the type of this. So what can I do about that? Well, it's interesting to know that you can convert from one type to another type. So in the next video, we'll look at the strings and what we can do with strings. But first, you already know strings. We've been using them before. It's when you use quotation mark. This is a string. If I print it, then it looks like a number, but it's still a string. Now, if I want to use them together, I will have issue. We saw that before, right? If I want to say, okay, I got my text 5 equal 5. And then I say, okay, I want to add that to my followers. Just to try. I like to put space up. It doesn't work. That's what we seen the last time, right? It says, okay, hey, wait, you're trying to, add together a float and a string. That won't work, right? It's not the same. Okay, so what we did last time is we just changed here. We did the opposite because all was text, and we just add the quotation mark. I could do the same. I could just say, okay, let's put it as a number, and now it works, all right? Because I just added 5 to this number. So I can add an integer to a float, but I cannot add a text, a string, to a float or to an integer. But what I can do is to convert it. I don't have to change everything. I can just say, hey, take this as a number, as an integer. And this means that I'm converting this text into a 5, a real 5, an integer 5. So now we know how to convert a text into an int. There is more thing we can do with numbers. So, and we can just play and try, right? Nothing stops you from just trying. Maybe you'll have an error and you can see what happens. So let's just do this. Like, what happens if you do int to a float number, right? So I can use this. I can use the one we had before and say, okay, int to followers per video created. Well, what it did is that it just removed the number that I had after the dot, after the comma, right? So it was not this one, right? We had 208.8 and now we got 208. So it didn't round the number, it just removed what we had after, and it converted it from float to integer, which means just keep the integer value, which is what happened here. If we don't want to do that, if we want to round the number, then you got this function, round, and you can use it like that. And here the big difference is that it says 209. So why 209? Because round is actually looking at the value after the comma to return what is the nearest number as an integer. So let's say if we have round 5.1, it's 5. If we got round 5.8, it's 6. That's the big difference here. Now if I do 5.5, it's 6. So by default it just decides to go up. Now we can do something else here. With this one we could have more number after the comma, right? So what we can do is, well, we can just use it and it would work, but we can also define how many numbers after the comma we want to keep or not. So when I don't put anything, it's like if it was 0 here, and if I put 2, then it say, hey, round it, but keep 2 numbers after, two digital number, 2 number after the comma. So it's useful to know that. Again, that kind of thing is all in the Python documentation, and I will put the link of this specific piece in the description. So you don't need to know all this. You need to know that it exists, so that when you will need it, you will not create your own code to round a number. That would be maybe not stupid, but it would be a loss of time because it already exists and it will be faster with the actual real function. Something else you can do is absolute number. So if you have something that is negative and you would like to have the positive version, you can just use abs. So the ABS like this. There would be other way when it will be a bit more advanced, but this is the best way because you don't care about what is the values that would be given to you. You would have a code that would be like this, followers, and you would have a value for followers. Let's say the followers that you receive in a day. Sometimes it can be negative when you're a small channel. So let's say, oh, I got 2 followers this day, right? 2 days followers, doesn't matter, just like that. So followers today, 2. Well, maybe just this time I was kind of unlucky and people decided to unsubscribe more than people subscribe, right? So the net amount during the day could be -1. When the channel is very, very new and you leave it away for a long time and you start publishing a video, it can happen. It has happened to me. So how would you just, what do you want to know is, okay, what was the movement? You're maybe not interested if it was up and down. What you want to know is, what was the movement? What was the absolute value of this change of followers? and you can just use abs. With the absolute value, you'll always have a positive number. You don't have to know conditions, anything like this yet, and it will be way faster. So again, this function is useful. It's not as if you know you don't have it, you'll die and you won't be a good coder. There are many different functions. Not all of those are for numbers, for int, etc. But you can see the one that we looked at. You got int here, you got abs here, absolute value, and you got more of the values that are not just for numbers, but as always, they are in the documentation. So something else we can look at is, okay, what is the minimum between 2 and 3? So the minimum between 2 and 3 is 2. What is the maximum between, let's say the same, 2 and 3? Wow, that's 3. So obviously right now, you know, it's like, oh, well, why would I want that? But when you actually start coding stuff, and we'll do that very soon, we're already doing, sometimes it's super useful to just take the highest value based on whatever else you want to do next. So you can do that automatically, not automatically, but you can do it using those functions from Python. What you need to know is that they exist. Now, how to use them, again, you got the documentation, you can click on any of those, and then you got an explanation of how it works. So either you'll have an iterable, so we'll see that next, that's the list, etc. So don't worry about that for now. Either you can give different value like this, and it will give you which one is the biggest, etc. When it's between brackets, it means that it's optional, and if it's not between brackets, it means that, well, it'd be looking for that. Anyway, like the detail of that is not that important. I've been explaining you everything, but just again to know that if you need more things, it is there available in the documentation. If you want to create a new function and it's really, really basic, you might want to check, you know, quick Google search, quick search in the documentation if it already exists, because, well, using those functions is obviously better than recreating, reinventing the wheel each and every time. So that's it for today. Int, float, you know the difference. In the next video, we'll look at string. Then we'll look at comments, and then I got a surprise video for you with a super cool project with the little thing we've seen yet. There's already really cool stuff we can do, and you won't believe it. We'll change the colors. We'll give back colors to black and white video or black and white pictures. Will be easy with pictures, but both will work just by changing variable of a shared collab that is on the web. So we're going to do that in a few lectures. Just continue and you'll have something awesome to show to your family and friends thanks to learning Python. See you soon.